If you've followed my content for long enough, you'll know that I'm typically pretty uncomfortable with the idea of a sales pitch, because typically that connotes to most people a very traditional idea of using a features and benefits presentation early on in the conversation where I'm talking about all the amazing solutions that I have to offer to you. Right? But that's super cheesy and really old school, and ultimately the data shows that prospects are immediately disengaged from that kind of a conversation. So instead, what we want to be doing is using a sales pitch that is focused much more on insight, on providing value than it is on focusing on your company, your features, or your benefits. Nobody cares. So in this video, I'm going to show you 7 tips for crafting the perfect sales pitch. Check it out. Number 1, the pitch isn't about you, it's about them. This is such an important distinction. Prospects only care about themselves. They only are focused on their own world, and they don't care about your product, about your service, about your company, about how your company's been in business for 300 years, or that you've got the best service, or that you've got the best offering. What they care about is a solution to the challenges that are plaguing them right now, the challenges that they're currently frustrated with, that they're getting out of meetings right now from, and they're saying, how are we going to solve this problem? So when we focus the early part of our conversation on the issues that they're facing, and we're ultimately using that little pitch to engage them in the conversation, we're establishing expertise, we're establishing authority. Number 2, use a small whiteboard. This is one of our favorite techniques that we're really focused on right now, which is the whiteboard pitch, where we're literally using a little whiteboard at the very beginning of a conversation. Now, of course, if you're on the phone, you're not going to be necessarily using a whiteboard, but you can still lay out the same process without actually showing them the whiteboard. But if you're on a Zoom or in a face-to-face meeting, you can literally have a small whiteboard, a little 8.5 by 11 whiteboard, or your iPad, or again, if you're on the Zoom, it can be right on your screen, and you're literally writing out in a structured way, which I'll show you right now on the screen as I'm going through the key pieces. You can show them exactly what are the key issues that they're facing and how it's ultimately affecting them, and use that to both demonstrate expertise and engage them in a conversation. By the way, when I'm with a CEO and we're having a sales conversation and I'm in their boardroom, I will literally stand up and go to the whiteboard. There is nothing more impressive than a salesperson who is very competent and comfortable writing out on a whiteboard in a structured fashion. Number 3, lay out the top 3 challenges you see. So this is where the whiteboard pitch gets really, really interesting, because what we want to ultimately do is, in a structured fashion, and again, I'll show you on the screen as I'm walking through this, how I would do it. I literally start a conversation, I engage by laying out the top 3 challenges that I see with my prospects right now. So I'll use the example of my world, which is where I'm talking to a high-level executive about sales. So I might start that conversation using the whiteboard, talk about, right now we're seeing a lot of clients similar to you that are facing 3 key issues. 1 is that they're losing sales to low-cost competitors. 2 is that they're being treated as just another vendor. Or finally, they're really just struggling to ultimately maintain quota. And I'm now going to walk you through the next piece of the whiteboard pitch, which is number 4, root cause for each challenge. I'm now going to lay out what's the root cause that's affecting each of these key challenges that we're seeing. So what we see with these 3 issues is that there are really root causes to each. And the first is that salespeople are simply not engaging in conversations around real value. On the second, it's that they're ultimately winging the sales process. There's no consistent structure to that sales process. And then on the third is that so many sales reps are just doing more of the same thing over and over again. So there's never any point of real distinction. I want to now walk you through the last piece, which is super interesting and where things get really, really fascinating and show a ton of insight, which is number 5, one piece of data to show the root cause. This is where you really start to show your expertise. And by the way, I don't care what you're selling, particularly if you're in the B2B space, but even in the B2C space, there are going to be pieces of data that you can share with prospects that are going to demonstrate a really high degree of expertise on what's really the key root causes that we're seeing. So now I'll go back into the whiteboard pitch and I'll demonstrate on the screen how I would walk through those 3 issues with pieces of data. So for the first issue, what we see, according to our data, is that about only 18% of salespeople today are actually classified by buyers as trusted advisors whom they actually respect. Secondly, we're actually seeing that 68% of salespeople are truly behaving in ways that truly drive down performance in sales. And then lastly, on the third issue, is that only a little under 25% of salespeople actually exceeded their quota last year. Number 6, engage them to talk. And so after I've just shared that entire whiteboard pitch, which by the way only takes about 2 minutes, so it would be something that I would use at the beginning of a face-to-face conversation or at the beginning of a Zoom meeting. And now I'm simply going to engage them and say, so based on what I've just talked about, do any of these issues ring true to you? And that's where we're now, after having established a ton of insight, we're now going to engage them around what they care about. And they're going to say, yeah, you know, we're seeing a lot of our people are being seen as just another vendor. And that's where I now go into the last piece, which is number 7, disqualification from there. And so we're going to now go right into the question piece using the disqualification process, which is something that I talk about in a ton of my videos, where once the prospect actually mentions a challenge, now we want to take them through a series of questions that are going to engage them in a high value conversation. And now once they've shared that challenge, now I'm going to say, so tell me a little bit more about what you see actually going on in your world. And now we're into a conversation where they feel like they're talking to an expert, because they are, but they also are talking to someone who has demonstrated that they understand their world, and now they're willing to answer tons of questions because they feel like they're talking to a doctor. So there are the 7 tips for crafting the perfect sales pitch. And if you enjoyed this video, then I have an awesome free training on the data-driven approach to help you crush your sales goals. Just click right here to get registered instantly. Seriously, just click right here. This is an in-depth training that will help you close more deals at higher prices, all while generating more meetings. Also, if you got some value, please like this video below on YouTube and be sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel by clicking my face, which should be right about here, to get access to a new video just like this one each week.